I thought I was crazy for doubting her, until I opened our bathroom door and saw the truth standing half naked in front of me. That was the moment my entire marriage unraveled. Hey folks, I've been carrying this weight on my chest for a while now and I think it's time to let it out. My wife, Rachel, and I have been married for 10 years. For the longest time, it felt like we had something solid, like one of those rare connections people spend their whole lives searching for. We first met when I was working my way up in a corporate marketing firm, and she was just starting her journey as a nail technician. What drew us together back then was her drive. She wasn't just doing nails, she was building something. Eventually, she even launched and managed her own studio. I always admired that about her. But recently, something shifted. The first half of this year went by without any red flags. Everything looked normal from the outside. We still kept up our Friday night dates, laughed at those silly sitcoms we've both seen a dozen times, and shared the same routines. If anything, Rachel seemed more at ease than usual. She's always had this guarded energy about her, kind of hard to crack emotionally, but I respected that. She's always been a strong, independent woman. Maybe that's exactly why I didn't see the warning signs sooner. Started with something small. She began going for nail appointments more regularly, every couple of weeks. That alone didn't raise any alarms, especially considering her profession. But the thing is, Rachel never really cared much about getting her own nails done. Suddenly she was coming home with these flashy, elaborate designs, things she never showed interest in before. One day I casually asked, "Hey Rach, when did you get so into nail art?" She gave me this look like I'd missed the memo. "It's trendy now, Mark. Haven't you been on Instagram lately?" I shrugged it off, assuming it was a new trend she was into. But thinking back now, I don't think those appointments were really about the nails. As the months passed, more little things began to stand out. At first, I chalked it up to her being swamped with work. Her business had expanded, more clients, more staff to train, more responsibilities all around. But even with all that, something didn't sit right. She grew unusually protective of her phone. Before, we'd both just leave our phones on the table or kitchen counter, no second thoughts. Now, hers was always face down or tucked away like it held national secrets. And then there was the way she'd get dolled up for those nail sessions. Full makeup, perfume, low-cut tops. Way more effort than you'd expect for a quick salon visit. I teased her once, just joking, trying to impress the nail tech. She laughed it off, saying, "It's about confidence, Mark. You wouldn't understand." That's when the doubt started creeping in. Not just because of her outfits or the makeup, it was in the way she talked about those visits. She'd come back looking almost radiant, like she'd just spent an afternoon in a dream. At first, I thought maybe the pampering was just giving her a break from the daily grind. But something didn't add up. So I tried asking gently, just making conversation. "Who does your nails now? You really seem to like them." She smiled, but it was strange. Her mouth smiled, but her eyes didn't. "Just a new girl," she said. "Really talented." Then just like that, she changed the subject. I felt it in my gut. Something wasn't right. But I wasn't ready to face it. Not then. Things got worse not long after. Rachel's schedule suddenly got a whole lot looser. She'd say she was working late or out with friends, but her stories didn't always make sense. I'd ask how her day had gone, just simple stuff, and she'd get distant, answering in half sentences or brushing me off. I kept convincing myself I was just being insecure. We've built a life together, right? A history. I figured maybe I needed to trust her more. But deep inside, that gnawing feeling only got stronger. And then came the night that really rattled me. She said she was heading out for a nail appointment, but when she walked through the door hours later, her nails looked exactly the same. Same pattern, no new polish. I tried to sound lighthearted when I asked, "Didn't feel like getting them done after all?" She flipped her hair and shrugged. "Oh, we didn't get around to it. Just hung out." Hung out. Since when do you just hang out with your manicurist? That's when I really started paying attention. I watched the clock when she left and tracked how long she was gone. Sometimes she'd be out for what should have been an hour, but she wouldn't come back for 3. She always had some excuse, got caught up, traffic, lost track of time. But it never sat right with me. That night, I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling trying to talk myself down. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe she was just overwhelmed with work. Maybe. But that doubt, it had sunk in deep and it wasn't letting go. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not without something solid. But the suspicion? It was like poison in my veins. And then, just a few days later, she dropped something else on me. She casually mentioned she'd started seeing a different manicurist. Said she switched to a new place across town because it was more convenient for her commute. It seemed harmless, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I tried to keep it light and asked, "Oh yeah? What's the new person's name?" She paused, barely, but I noticed. Then she said, "Oh, his name's David. He's great, really knows his stuff." His name? Look, I'm not the type to make assumptions just because a guy does nails. That wasn't the issue. It was the way Rachel said it, fast and clipped, like she was rushing through the conversation before I could ask more questions. I tried to keep things light just to feel out her reaction. "Oh, that's cool. You liking the new place?" She looked up from her phone just for a moment and I caught this flash of irritation in her eyes. "Yeah, Mark. It's fine. Why are you so interested?" Her voice had this sharpness to it, subtle but enough to let me know I should drop it if I knew what was good for me. So I let it go on the outside. But inside, my thoughts were racing. She'd never talked about a guy doing her nails before. And now, after all these weird late nights and changes in routine, suddenly there's this new guy? Everything in my gut was telling me that something wasn't right, but I was still trying to be rational, to not jump to conclusions. Then it got worse. Her phone, which used to sit casually on the coffee table or kitchen counter, was suddenly glued to her side. Every time it buzzed, she'd snatch it up instantly. If I so much as looked in its direction, she'd tense up like I was trespassing. That wasn't the Rachel I knew. That open trust we'd always had, it felt like it was disappearing right in front of me. That's when I realized I couldn't just keep pretending everything was normal. Something was hiding behind those nail appointments, and no matter how much I wanted to believe otherwise, I needed answers. I had no idea just how far this was going to go. After the whole David the manicurist moment, I couldn't let it slide. I started paying attention to every detail. Her behavior, her schedule, the way she'd suddenly be out running errands or catching up on work that didn't seem to exist. None of it added up. Then came the night I crossed a line I never thought I would. Rachel was in the shower and she'd left her phone on the kitchen counter to charge. I stood there staring at it, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. A voice in my head was screaming at me to just walk away. But another voice, louder, kept whispering, "You need to know." So I picked it up, hands trembling, and opened it. At first, it was just the usual stuff, group chats, messages from friends. But then I saw a conversation with someone saved as D. Just a few lines exchanged. Not enough to say everything, but more than enough to hint at something deeper. Messages like, "Miss you already," and "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." That's not how friends or clients talk. I tried scrolling up, but most of the conversation had been wiped clean, deleted. It was like catching a glimpse of something just out of reach. My stomach dropped. I knew then that whatever this was, it wasn't just harmless. I put the phone back before she came out, but the damage was already done. My mind was spinning with questions I couldn't answer. Who was this guy? Was it David from the salon? Was that even his real name? Was everything she'd been telling me a lie? Later that night I tried to act normal. I asked her about her plans for the next day, like I wasn't dying inside. "Oh, I've got a nail appointment after work," she said so casually it almost broke me. But there was something in her voice, a stiffness, like she was too prepared for the question. That was it for me. I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo, wondering and doubting. I needed the truth even if it crushed me. The next day at work I couldn't focus on anything. My stomach was in knots, my thoughts bouncing all over the place. I felt ridiculous, like some jealous husband who couldn't get a grip. But I just knew, that something wasn't right. When Rachel got home that evening she was smiling, calm, asking how my day was like everything was fine. It almost made me second-guess myself. But then she went upstairs, changed into something a little too nice for a nail appointment, touched up her makeup and gave me a kiss on the cheek like it was any other day. "I'll be back in a couple of hours," she said. As soon as she pulled out of the driveway I grabbed my keys and followed her. I stayed a few cars behind, heart racing, trying not to get spotted. I didn't even know where this new salon was, so I just hoped she wouldn't notice me. Every second felt like a lifetime. She drove all the way across town, past every nail place I knew. Then she turned into a quiet residential neighborhood. Not a strip mall, not a shopping center, just a row of ordinary houses. She pulled up in front of a small, unmarked home. No sign out front. Nothing to suggest a business at all. I parked down the street and watched as she got out of her car, glanced at her phone, then walked up to the door. She rang the bell. A few moments later, a man opened the door. He looked to be in his early 40s, casual but confident. He smiled at her like they shared a secret. And then, without a second thought, she stepped inside. The door closed behind her. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My whole body felt numb. My mind scrambled to find a way to explain it, Maybe he was a family friend, maybe she was planning a surprise for me? But I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I had just watched my wife walk into another man's house, dressed up, while telling me she was going to get her nails done. And suddenly everything made sense and nothing did. I parked a little ways down the street, engine off, headlights dimmed, just watching that house. 1 hour passed. Then 2. I was expecting answers, maybe closure, but all I got was silence and the slow crawl of time. Sitting there, alone in the dark, my mind raced through every nightmare scenario. I told myself I was prepared for whatever I might see, but nothing prepares you for this kind of storm. This was the edge. I could feel it. I was standing on the brink of something I couldn't undo. I kept staring at that quiet little house, the one where my wife had just walked into without hesitation. 2 hours. That's how long I sat there, gripping the wheel, heart pounding, imagining every way Rachel might try to justify this. Every excuse, every half-truth. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to see it for myself. I had to know. So I stepped out of the car. My legs felt weak, like they barely remembered how to move. My steps were slow, each one weighed down with fear, anger, and something I couldn't even name. Every part of me screamed to stop, to just go home and pretend I hadn't seen anything. But I kept going. I stood in front of that door, breathing hard, hands shaking. I didn't know what I expected to hear or see. All I got was silence. A silence so thick it nearly choked me. I knocked. After a pause, I heard footsteps inside. Then the door creaked open. Rachel stood there. She looked startled, her eyes wide like she'd just seen a ghost. Her hair was a little messy, her lipstick slightly smudged. And standing a few feet behind her in the hallway was him, David. The man she'd called her manicurist. He didn't even flinch. Just gave me that same easygoing smirk I'd seen when she first arrived. Like none of this was real. Like I wasn't standing there with my whole world unraveling. "What is this, Rachel?" My voice was rough, barely above a whisper, but thick with hurt. "What's going on?" She just stared at me. No words, no immediate denial. Just silence. Then finally she spoke. "Mark, I can explain." Explain. That word hit me like a hammer. Explain what? That every time she said she was getting her nails done, she was coming here? That she'd been lying to my face for months and I hadn't seen it? Explain? I repeated, stepping forward. Explain how you've been living a double life? How I've been sleeping beside someone I don't even recognize anymore. Her eyes flicked toward David. And that was it. The confirmation I didn't want, but already knew. She sighed like this whole thing was some burden I had created. "Mark, it's not what you think. Isn't that what they always say?" "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice cracking. "I followed you, Rachel. I saw you come in here. I've been watching this unfold for months, and now you're standing here acting like it's nothing?" David stayed quiet. Not a word from him. Not an apology, not even a reaction. Just that smug look, like this wasn't his first time tearing someone's life apart. Rachel finally lost her patience. "Fine. You want honesty?" "Yeah, I've been seeing him. Yes, I've been coming here. I didn't tell you because I knew how you'd react." That moment? I don't think I'll ever forget it. It felt like the ground gave out beneath me. 10 years. 10 years of a life we built, thrown away with the flick of a sentence. She didn't even try to make it easier, didn't show remorse, didn't soften her voice. Just laid it out there like I was the one who deserved to be hurt. I couldn't even get the words out. "Why?" I asked, barely able to hold myself together. "Why would you do this, Rachel?" She folded her arms and looked away. "Because you're never here. You're always working." I felt alone, Mark. And that was too much. "Don't do that," I snapped. "Don't put this on me. I worked for us. I gave everything to make sure we had a good life. And this is how you repay me." For a split second, I thought I saw guilt in her eyes. But it disappeared as fast as it came. She couldn't even meet my gaze anymore. I stood there reeling. I didn't even recognize the woman in front of me. The person I married was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't understand, someone who could look me in the eye after months of lies. There was nothing left to say. I turned around and walked away. I didn't yell, didn't scream. I just left. I don't even remember getting into my car or how long I drove. I just remember the quiet. The kind of quiet that settles into your bones and makes you feel hollow. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just needed space, room to breathe, to think, to exist outside the wreckage of what my life had become. Hours later, I finally made my way back home. The driveway looked just like it always did. The porch light was on. The lawn was still neat. From the outside, nothing had changed. But inside me, everything was shattered. When I finally walked through the front door, I half expected to see Rachel on the couch, maybe flipping through her phone, rehearsing some excuse. But the house was dark. Too quiet. No lights, no footsteps. Just this thick, uneasy silence that felt like it was waiting for me. For a second I actually wondered if she had run. Maybe she packed a bag and vanished before I got back. But then I spotted her purse, right there on the kitchen counter. She was still here. I moved through the house like I was walking into a stranger's home. Everything looked the same, familiar furniture, our wedding photo still hanging in the hallway, but it all felt different. My chest was tight, my heart pounding. Something wasn't right. I could feel it deep in my bones. Then I heard it. Laughter. Soft, muffled voices coming from the bathroom. And then her laugh, that laugh I used to love. The one that used to light me up inside. Now it made my stomach turn. I inched closer, not making a sound, and the closer I got, the more unreal it felt. Like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. I pushed the bathroom door open just a crack. And there they were. Rachel and David. Half-dressed, standing in front of the mirror in our bathroom. She was wrapped in one of our towels, leaning against him. He had one hand sliding across her bare shoulder while whispering something that made her smile. That moment broke something in me. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was where it was happening. In my home. In our space. The bathroom we painted together, where we'd laughed about dripping paint on the floor. Now it was theirs. I didn't recognize any of it anymore. I stood there frozen. I could feel the heat rising in my face, my fists clenched so tight they hurt. I wanted to burst in, yell, tear it all down. But I didn't. I stepped back quietly like I wasn't even real anymore. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. Not yet. I walked out of the house, numb and shaking, but more clear-headed than I'd been all night. That wasn't just some fling. This had been going on, long enough for them to feel comfortable right there in the middle of my life, like they belonged. Like I didn't matter. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my mind a storm of confusion and fury. The rage was like a wildfire. How could she do this? With him? And in our home? That was it. I couldn't let it go. I stormed back inside, the front door slamming behind me. No more holding back. No more second chances. I marched down the hallway, the sound of my footsteps loud and angry. I didn't care if they heard me now. I wanted them to hear. I shoved the bathroom door open. Rachel gasped, stumbling back and clutching the towel tighter. David just stood there, caught mid-motion, shirtless and wide-eyed like a kid caught sneaking out. For a long second, no one said a word. Just silence and my heavy breathing. Rachel finally spoke. "Mark, I can explain." I let out a bitter laugh, sharp and cold. "Explain? You're standing in our bathroom, half naked, with him, and you think there's something to explain?" She tried to step forward, her face red with panic. "It's not what you think." "Don't," I snapped. "Don't insult me with that garbage. How long has this been going on, Rachel? How many lies have you told? How many times have you walked out that door, pretending to go to work, and ended up here?" She was shaking her head, tearing up, but I didn't care. "Not anymore." I pointed between the two of them. This is what you've been hiding?" David, still standing there like he wasn't the center of a disaster, had the nerve to speak. "Look, man, let's not." I stepped toward him, fists clenched. "Don't you dare talk to me. You came into my house. My home. And now you think you can play peacemaker?" Rachel tried to get between us, her hands up, voice pleading. "Please, Mark, just stop." "Stop," I barked. "You want to talk now? After months of lies? After dragging this into our bathroom?" My voice cracked under the weight of it all. "You've shattered everything. And you think some half-baked explanation is going to fix this?" Her tears came then, but I was beyond them. I had cried in silence for weeks without answers. I had felt the weight of doubt crush me. Now it was her turn to sit with what she'd done. David moved like he was going to speak again, and I raised a hand. "You don't get to say a word. Get out. Now." His expression shifted. Still that same cool, detached look, but there was a sliver of hesitation. He grabbed his shirt from the counter and started walking out. And there I was, left standing in the ruins of everything I thought I knew. The home we built now felt like a stranger's house. The woman I loved. I didn't even recognize her anymore. For a second, David just stood there like he thought he could talk his way out of it. Maybe he figured he could reason with me, smooth things over somehow. But then he looked at my face, and that must have been enough. He grabbed the rest of his clothes without saying a word, his eyes flicking toward Rachel like he was hoping she'd speak up, give him some kind of signal. She didn't say a thing. And just like that, he walked out of my house. Out of my life. But the damage? That was already done. As soon as the door clicked shut behind him, Rachel turned to me, her face streaked with tears. "Mark, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to get this far." The anger was still there, burning inside me, but now something heavier was starting to settle in. Something hollow. "You never meant for it to get this far?" I repeated, my voice quiet, flat. "You let him into our home, Rachel. You crossed every line. What did you think was going to happen? Did you really believe I wouldn't find out?" She broke down, shaking her head as the tears kept coming. I didn't know what to do. It just happened. I stared at her, my chest tight, my mind in 1,000 pieces. "It didn't just happen," I said, almost whispering. "You let it happen. You made choices. You made this happen." It hit me like a freight train then, the weight of everything. The life we built, the trust we'd shared, the years spent thinking I knew who she was. It was all gone. Shattered. And I realized, standing there in the doorway of our bathroom, that there was no saving this. Nothing to go back to. "I trusted you," I said. My voice cracked as I shook my head slowly. "And you threw it all away." I turned and walked out before she could say another word. The door slammed behind me, the echo of it cutting through the quiet like a gunshot. I didn't care. I needed air. I needed to get away from that house, from everything inside it. The cool night hit me in the face, but it didn't bring any relief. My heart felt like it was caving in on itself. I kept walking, not knowing where I was going, just moving, trying to outrun the weight sitting on my chest. The betrayal, the sheer audacity of it all, it was like poison in my bloodstream. I couldn't get the image out of my head. Rachel and him standing in our bathroom like it was theirs. Like I was the one who didn't belong there. I must have walked for miles. Street after street, my thoughts spiraling, trying to make sense of everything. Where had it all gone wrong? How did I not see it? Had I been that blind? Eventually, I ended up at the park near our neighborhood. It was late, the place completely deserted, exactly what I needed. I sat on one of the benches under the trees and looked up at the sky, but all I saw was blackness. No stars. Just the emptiness reflecting back at me. I pulled out my phone almost by instinct. Part of me thought about texting someone, calling a friend, anything. But who could I call? Who would understand what it felt like to walk into your own bathroom and see your wife with another man? How do you even begin that conversation? Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Rachel. "Rachel, Mark, please come home. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Sorry." Now she was sorry? After the lies, the deception, the months of sneaking around? After letting him into our house? I stared at the screen for a long moment, then set the phone down beside me on the bench. I couldn't even bring myself to respond. What was the point? She had already made her choice. Whatever she thought talking would fix, it was far too late for that. I dropped my head into my hands, elbows on my knees. I felt exhausted. Empty. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was the betrayal that twisted the knife. The quiet, deliberate betrayal. I didn't know how long I sat there before I heard footsteps on the path behind me. I turned and it was my neighbor Sam walking his dog. He did a double take when he saw me. "Mark?" he asked, stopping beside the bench. "You all right, man? What are you doing out here this late?" I tried to find the words, but nothing came. What could I say? "Hey Sam. My wife's been cheating on me and I just caught her with the guy in our bathroom. So I said the only thing I could manage. Just needed some air." He looked at me for a moment, his face softening. "You don't look great, man. You okay?" And that was it. I couldn't hold it in anymore. The words just started pouring out. I told him everything, the weird nail appointments, the lies, the tension, the moment I saw her with David. I didn't even care how it sounded. I just needed to let it out, to say it all out loud and hear someone else acknowledge that I wasn't crazy. Sam didn't say much. He just listened, let me talk. And somehow that helped more than I expected. When I finally stopped, drained and empty, he just shook his head. "That's rough, man. I'm sorry. I really am." I nodded, staring down at the ground. "Yeah, I don't know what to do now." He sat down beside me, keeping his voice calm. "You don't need to figure it all out tonight. Just breathe. One thing at a time. You've been through something no one should have to go through. Give yourself space." And for the first time all night, I didn't feel completely alone. Sam let out a long breath and sat beside me on the bench. "Look, man, I'm not gonna pretend I know what this feels like. But I do know this, don't go back there tonight. Not like this. You're angry and with good reason. But going back now, that's not going to make anything better." And I knew he was right. I wasn't ready. Not to see her. Not to hear more lies dressed up as regret. "I don't even know where I'd go," I admitted, my voice quiet, heavy. He gave a small nod, pulling gently on his dog's leash as the pup circled our feet. Crash at my place tonight. It's not much, but it's quiet and you won't be alone. We'll figure out the rest when the sun comes up. For the first time that night, I felt a small piece of weight lift off my chest. It wasn't peace, not even close, but it was something. I needed that, just something solid, something real. I followed Sam back to his place. The house faded into the distance behind me, but I knew I wasn't leaving pain behind. I was just putting space between me and the worst night of my life. The next morning, I woke up on his couch and for a second I forgot where I was. The room was dim, the TV screen dark, the blanket pulled halfway off me. And then it all came rushing back. Not a dream. Not a nightmare I could shake off. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the silence thick. My body felt sore, probably from the couch but mostly from the emotional wreckage. Every part of me still buzzed with what I'd seen, what I'd felt. Rachel in our bathroom with him. The lies, the months of doubt, the smirks, the towel. The betrayal. Sam walked in, his dog trailing behind him. He gave me a look, half sympathy, half worry. You get any sleep? I sat up slowly, rubbing my face. A little. Enough. He sat across from me in the armchair, elbows resting on his knees. You think about what you're gonna do? I nodded slowly. I don't know where to begin. Part of me wants to go back and confront her again. Ask why. Get the whole story. But what good would that do? She already told me what I needed to hear. Sam didn't speak right away. He just let me sit with the silence a second longer before saying, You can't undo what happened, Mark. And you definitely don't owe her more chances to twist the knife. You've got to ask yourself if this is something you can ever really move on from. Some people try. Some don't. But only you know what you can live with. Could I forgive her? Even if she cried and begged, even if she swore it would never happen again, could I look her in the eye and not see him standing behind her? I don't think I can, I said, the words sticking to my throat. I don't think I even want to. Sam nodded like he'd known that was coming. Then you've got your answer, man. It's gonna hurt, but you've got to start looking out for yourself now. He was right. I'd been trapped in my own head for months, doubting my instincts, questioning my sanity. But last night? Last night proved I hadn't been wrong. I need to go back, I finally said. Not for her. Just to get my stuff. He gave me a look. You want me to go with you? I shook my head. No. I need to do this alone. About an hour later, I was in my car, the road blurring past as I drove toward the house that didn't feel like mine anymore. With every mile, my gut twisted tighter. I had no idea what I'd find. Would she be waiting? Would she try to beg again? Pretend like last night could be scrubbed clean? I pulled into the driveway, staring at the house for a long time. Same porch. Same curtains in the windows. But everything inside it had changed. I walked to the door slowly, hand hovering on the knob for a beat before I pushed it open. The air inside felt heavy. So, Rachel was on the couch, her eyes swollen and red like she hadn't slept. She looked up the second she saw me, her expression falling apart. Mark? I held up my hand before she could say more. Don't. She stood, taking a step toward me. Please, just let me say something. There's nothing left to say, I said, calm on the outside, even as every nerve in my body felt like it was splintering. You said enough last night. I just came to get my things. Tears welled up again in her eyes. I made a mistake. I know that. But we can fix this. We can talk through it. Please just. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her not as my wife, not as the woman I fell in love with, but as the stranger who broke me. You didn't make a mistake, Rachel. You made a choice. Over and over again. She covered her face with her hands, crying into her palms. I turned and headed toward the bedroom. And I didn't look back. No, Rachel. We can't. My voice was firmer now, no hesitation. This wasn't some slip-up, some lapse in judgment. It was a decision. One you made over and over again. You didn't just hurt me, you ended us. She broke down completely at that, sobbing into her hands like the weight of it had finally hit her. But I couldn't afford to care anymore. Not now. I couldn't let her tears convince me there was anything left worth saving. I'm leaving, I said, the words coming out calm but resolute. I'm taking what I need and I'm gone. Her crying grew louder, but I didn't flinch. I turned away and headed up the stairs, my feet heavy, every step a reminder that this was the end. Her cries echoed through the walls, those same walls where we once shared laughs, dreams, late-night talks. Now they just felt hollow. Upstairs I packed quickly. Just the essentials. Clothes, a few keepsakes that meant something to me, things I didn't want to leave behind in a house that no longer felt like mine. As I zipped up the bag, the finality of it all settled in. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a break. This was the end of a life I thought we'd grow old in together. When I came back downstairs, she was still there, curled up on the couch, her face hidden in her hands. For a moment I paused. Not because I was reconsidering, because I was grieving. Not just the betrayal, but the person I thought she was. The future I thought we had. I didn't say another word. I just walked out the door. And that was the beginning of a new life. A life I didn't ask for, but one I now had to live. Stepping outside felt strange. The world was the same, but I wasn't. I felt like I'd crossed into unfamiliar territory, wounded, lost, but somehow free. For the first time in a long time, I didn't have to wonder anymore. No more second-guessing, no more silent suspicion. The truth, as ugly as it was, had set me free. The next few days were brutal. I stayed at Sam's place a little longer. Nights were sleepless. Mornings hit hard. Grief, anger, shame, all of it came and went like tides. But Sam, quiet and steady, kept reminding me, this was not the end of me. It was just the end of us. Eventually, I found a small place of my own. Nothing fancy, just a little one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. But it was mine. And the first night I spent there, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Peace. Not happiness, not yet. But peace. The absence of lies. Of betrayal. Of wondering. And that silence? It felt like healing. In that silence, I started piecing myself back together. I went back to the gym. Started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I even booked a few sessions with a therapist. Something I'd always brushed off. But talking, working through it, made it less overwhelming. Slowly, I started to feel like someone I recognized. Then, about a month later, my phone rang. It was Rachel. I hadn't blocked her. A part of me wanted her to know she didn't have access to me whenever she wanted, but also that I wasn't hiding either. I answered. Her voice was soft, broken. Mark, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know it's too late. I know I can't undo any of it. But I can't stop thinking about what I've done. About you. I let her speak. There was a time her voice would have shattered me. But now I just listened. Not out of affection. Out of closure. I'm sorry, she repeated, crying. I hate what I did. I hate that I hurt you. I know, I said. My voice was steady. And I believe you're sorry. But that doesn't change anything. It's done. You made your choice and I've made mine. She was silent on the other end. Then she whispered, Goodbye, Mark. Goodbye, I said. And that was it. The final thread was cut. I sat there for a while, holding the phone in my hand, surprised by how light I felt. Not because it didn't matter, but because I knew, finally, I didn't need her to understand. I didn't need her to fix it. That wasn't my burden anymore. She would have to live with what she did. And I would live with who I was becoming. I kept moving forward. Slowly. Day by day. The pain didn't vanish, it just stopped defining me. I was rebuilding. Not to prove anything to her. But to prove something to myself. And now, I'm okay. Not every day. Not every moment. But deep down, I know I survived something that could have destroyed me. And that's worth something. It's not about her anymore. It's about me.